Injustice rolls down like water, challenging white supremacy and media constructions of crime and punishment, by Bill Usman. Media representations of people of color. People of color are painted as violent, criminal, savage threats to white social order. There are connections among media representations, the public imagination, public opinion, and public policy. Media images and narratives play a crucial role in shaping our perceptions of key issues, including race, crime, policing, and incarceration. As technology and industry changes, corporate media systems continue to frame people of color as a problem while transforming violence and suppression into the stuff of entertainment. New media racism is not the same as old media racism, and contemporary cultural constructions of crime and violence usually rely on inferential rather than overt calls for white control of people of color. Yet the traces of historical patterns of white supremacist representation persist. The orange is the new black. There are some things we should give credit for, and of course there's some shortcomings about this show. First, credit. 1. Racial disparities in mass incarceration are shown. Also, we see sexual abuse before a person is incarcerated and while they're incarcerated. And we also see struggles of queer and trans prisoners. Some shortcomings include that this is part of corporate TV industry and that the focus for the show is a white woman in prison. Orange is the New Black provides insights into the aspects of American culture that most members of the audience will not experience firsthand, while simultaneously reifying and commodifying the deep-seated racial anxieties of white viewers. Prison abolishment, activism, and social media. Media can also be used as a form of social justice, as a tool for social justice. With citizen-produced journalism, we now see videos of police brutality from the activists. These videos raise awareness of rights when dealing with police and other authorities as a way to counter the dominant position of the criminal justice system. One organization that does this is Critical Resistance. Critical Resistance seeks to build an international movement to end the prison industrial complex by challenging the belief that caging and controlling people makes us safe. In the iPhone, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat era, Huxley and Postman's amusing ourselves to death can be seen. We see warnings that are ever more present, more germane, more disturbing. How can activists hope to arouse attention, outrage, and action against police brutality and the mass incarceration state while the public is too busy posting selfies and pictures of their food to Instagram while playing Candy Crush on their phones? Meanwhile, Orwell's nightmare also seems more real every week as most governments and corporations employ new technologies to watch us day and night. The ultimate version of the pantopic state of Foucault's 1977 dissected in Discipline and Punish. Demonization and criminalization of people of color. TV news ignores the issues of mass incarceration. What we see instead is the Hollywood industry or popular culture. We see the demonization and criminalization of people of color in music videos, TV crime dramas, reality TV, and documentary prison shows. What we see as well from these forms of media is white saviors depicted as police and people of color are seen as villainous. One of the core ideas behind media's framing theory is that media narratives emphasize and elaborate on certain ideas, while others are marginalized or excluded. As Ettman explains, to frame is to select some aspects of a perceived reality and make them more salient in a communicating text, in such a way as to promote a particular problem definition, casual interpretation, more evaluation, and our treatment recommendation for the item described. When individuals and activist organizations engage in resistance to authoritarian abuses of power, the very thought that sparked their confrontation may be left out of the frame altogether. And here we see an example of framing of the Black Lives Matter movement. So for framing, we see that crucial facts are left out, critical questions are not answered, the context of the event or issue is not explained, and we often don't answer the question, why are people protesting? What we see instead is that Black Lives Matter is seen or framed as a terrorist group, where there is no evidence, Framing found in corporate media platforms and online spaces distorts the truth or tells a different story. And there's no mention of Black Lives Matter's grievances to tell their side of the story. So with new technologies, we might engage in progressive politics. Again, this is because social justice and this type of media can be used as a tool for mobilization. The tool can be used as a reactionary force that opposes the views as well. There are ties among media and criminal justice systems. Again, we look at a larger macro focus and industrial institutional focus. We see how these two industries are tied together. So because of this, we need a transformation for both. There are simultaneous fights, and this is because the 24 media cycle is tied to the criminal justice system, and the criminal justice system is tied to media. This could be a problem because there's a lack of access to the halls of power, but with social media, with other forms of media, we can go in and change the culture to later then change public policy. Social media can also be used to record injustice. YouTube is used as a platform for dialogue about police and state-sponsored violence. Platforms are used and shared on a group happenings instantly. However, there's some limitations to using platforms like YouTube. One, they cannot follow those taken into custody. Secondly, social media cannot be used to go into jails and detention centers to see it firsthand. And lastly, social media is useful, but to make big change, to bring around big awareness, big media is also needed. One thing that we don't often talk about is the First Amendment rights for the incarcerated. There is some media access in prison. However, people who are incarcerated are denied the use of social media. There is a big push for media industries to shed light on issues of imprisonment. One organization that's trying to push big issues about imprisonment into the media is Electronic Frontier Foundation. What they found is that they're trying to curtail Facebook from removing incarcerated individuals' pages without reason. So again, should people who are imprisoned have a voice? Should their stories be heard? And how should it be heard? Media literacy can be considered as a form of social justice. Some argue that we should support critical media literacy for all grade levels, youth programs, and community organizations. And with media literacy, we can respond to the dominant ideology with self-created counter-hegemonic media. This helps us to reclaim our power and tell our own stories. And one organization that does that is National Association for Media Literacy Education. Media literacy is a form of education, and we can use the media and create alternative forms of media as part of media literacy. So the Media Education Formation is one organization that does that. They produce and distribute documentaries about key media and cultural issues. Project Censored discusses unreported public issues. And one aspect of that is the Global Critical Media Literacy Project. Their mission is to employ a service learning-based media literacy education model to teach digital media literacy and critical thinking skills, as well as raise awareness about corporate and state-engineered news media censorship around the world. Another organization is Action Coalition for Media Action, and they focus on critical media literacy. And lastly, Free Press, although this is not the last one. Free Press focuses on to reform corporate media systems.